Hello, and welcome back to the Impossible Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Architect Anna, and I'm an entrepreneur on a mission to do the impossible. And we are into season 2, and this is episode 4, The Identity Gap. The person that you want to be is closer than you think. So, if you've listened to the first season, you know that I've gone on a transformational personal journey to get from where I was to who I wanted to be in a very short period of time, in 12 months. And 12 months can seem like a long time and it is a lot of work, but you can absolutely do it. I'm going to tell you guys about like a hack that I came up with that's a really, really fun and cool way to actually close that gap even faster than the way that I did it before. And it's both a skill gap as well as, I guess, a confidence gap that sometimes holds people back. So, who I wanted to be, a year ago, let's see, I'm recording this in March. Yeah, I mean, I got out of debt in June 2025, and I spent over 2 years living in less than fortunate living situations. And I knew that I wanted to completely change that. Like, I wanted to have a lot more control over my life. I wanted to have more income coming in. I was in a position where even though I was a qualified architect, even though I worked as a chief marketing officer, I still couldn't get a job. I was trying to get my business off the ground. I was trying to learn AI. I was trying to venture out into this unknown world while also applying for hundreds of jobs because I needed an income. When I got started with AI at the start of 2023 from like a non-techie perspective, there was not work, like, people were still trying to figure things out. There were not courses that I could learn from. I had to teach myself. So it was very much a path that was not trodden before, and I knew that I wanted to learn and I wanted to move forward with it. So I tried to do all of these things at once, and they just kept not working, right? And until I had a solid plan and a very clear direction, I was just kind of like trying something, failing, moving on, trying something, failing, moving on, and not really sticking with something because I hadn't clarified the vision in my mind. So, the person who you might want to be might be like several different versions. And I think it's important to first think about like a clear version that you are like 100% happy with. What does that look like? Where do they live? How do they act? How do they speak? What does their morning look like? I think if you can start to picture that in your mind, then you can work backwards from where you are now to how you get to that person. So in my case, I knew from where I was living before, I was like, future me is gonna be living it up in a two-bedroom penthouse for sure. It's gonna happen. I was like, it's just a few months away. It's just a few months away. I just kept telling myself over and over again. And then it wasn't that far away, and I ended up moving into a two-bedroom penthouse. Huzzah! So these things absolutely can happen, and that was this part of my future identity was like, I wanna live somewhere nice, I wanna overlook the city, I wanna have a beautiful view of the Thames in London, and I mean, I guess you could say I manifested it, but I also did a shit ton of hard work, and then I made it happen. So it is absolutely possible, but I think first you have to have that clarity in your mind. So I am someone who is very much a long-term strategic planner. My mom, for example, cannot really see past like 2 weeks ahead. She struggles to look that far, and I'm very much like, decades. I'm looking decades, I'm looking years ahead, and I'm planning everything backwards to try to achieve it. And that's actually something I can help other people do. So that's nice because I didn't realize that people didn't do that. So yay. So if that's someone like you and you're like you struggle to look forward, just maybe just have a visual. What would you look like in your the best version of yourself, the happiest version of your life? What would it look like? Are you in a cabin in the mountains? Are you in a penthouse in London? Like, where are you? And then try to plan backwards. I've done this with friends. I've done this with clients. And it's like, okay, we actually figure out it from a financial perspective. Like, I knew someone they wanted to buy a 4-bedroom house in the outskirts of London. And so I actually went online. And rather than that just be like a magical dream that they might have never, uh, I looked up house prices. I looked at a timeline and then increased the rate of those house prices for what they might be, looked at their salary, looked at their skill set, said, like, okay, you can get to this job if you want. You would need to do these extra courses. That would take this amount of time. What's the timeline that you want this house? And they were like, oh, I don't know. I never actually thought it would happen. I'm like, okay, well, we can make it happen. Um, you just need a couple years and you just need to plan it out and go forth and do it. So if you actually picture something and then a part of you is like, I don't really think that's real. Like, it's never going to actually happen. First of all, shush that part of yourself. It's lying to you. You can absolutely do it. People do crazy things all the time. And I'm hoping, because this is also something I'm picturing for my future, in the third season of this podcast, so next year, 2027, I actually want to invite on impossible entrepreneurs. I actually want to talk to people who have overcome adversity. They've gone through strife and struggles and they've managed to build something epic. I want to bring on those super inspirational, interesting, amazing people so that I can share their stories with you. So that's something that I want for next year. But once you start to have other guests on podcasts, it's quite a lot of coordination. And even just getting this little podcast studio set up with the mic and the camera and the lighting and the background and all the things, uh, it's time consuming. It takes a lot of effort and energy. But I knew that I wanted to keep leveling up the content that I created. I knew that was part of my future identity. I want to be someone who is public facing, who is helping people at scale. And to do that, you need to be better with social media, which is a constant work in progress, and I'm always learning. But I knew that was part of what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. I knew that I know that I want to speak on massive stages to thousands and thousands of people. And I know to do that, you can raise your profile and authority in a lot of different ways. And this is one of them. If you have a space where you are the one that controls it, you have your own podcast, for example, then you have some options, right? Like you can trade guests with someone else to get on their podcast and leverage their audience. If you're someone who is a business owner and you want to get exposure, yes, you can reach out to people to get onto their podcast. And if you are someone who has achieved great success, and you also have a very interesting story, maybe reach out to me for season 3. So I think part of it is just the mindset and it's aligning like where you are now or where you want to go. I have used visualization. I know some people like swear by it. It was something that I did not touch before, I'd say 18 months ago, but I've used visualization, which has actually helped me internalize a few things and make it feel like it's much more possible. So especially if your dreams are very big, which I recommend, I would say visualization can be a really useful thing. So now let me give you a practical thing that you can do. So a couple weeks ago, I was, really trying to break through what I need to do to bootstrap my tech startup. And it's a whole thing. There's lots of different ways. Like of course, I could go through an incubator program. I could partner with a tech founder. I could go and get VC funding. I could get angel investors. I could do all these things. I could earn enough money to hire a dev team. Yes, these are all options. Most of them I've said no for a few different reasons. But I knew for who I want to be, I want to understand it. I don't just want someone else to build it and not have that creative control. Because when it comes to technology and building it, there's actually a lot of creativity in the process. And I didn't fully realize that. I went to a conference and they were talking about the creative philosophy behind data science. And I was like, I have never seen it that way, but wow. Wow, they're like creative problem solvers. I was like, okay, I want to know that. And I'm not going to take time to do another degree. I have 4 degrees and I like doing things myself. So what I did was I went into a chatbot, and don't worry, I'm going to talk more in the next episode about how you can advance this process when I talk about the AI advantage. But I went into a chatbot and I told it my goal, which it was already aware of in its memory. I told it my goal of what I was trying to build. I told it where I am now. And I told it it needed to interview me to ask me questions about where I am now and where I want to be and identify all my gray areas of knowledge and my skill gaps. Because you don't know what you don't know. So you might be trying to do something and you're not 100% sure of what it requires or what you need to to do it or build it or whatever. So I basically had it interview me, and it was a really interesting process. Some things I just couldn't fully answer, or I was like, this is how I'm going to say what I think it is, and you can tell me whether or not I'm right or wrong or where the gap or misalignment is. And so we went through, did that, and identified all of these areas. And then I had it create a customized 8-week curriculum for myself, which took several things into account. So it took the timeline, which I wanted it to be about 2 months, because I'm on a particular timeline I'm trying to work on. And also, I would say it's always best to try to condense your timeline because things always take longer than you think they're going to. There's delays, there's life things that get in the way. So I was like, 8 weeks is good because it'll probably take me 6 months. Probably. double it, triple it. That's how long it'll probably take. So then I looked at how much time I actually have and how much of these things would take to learn. And I was like, I've got about 45 minutes to 60 minutes every morning when I cycle on my stationary bike at home. I've gotten pretty good at like listening and watching podcasts while I'm cycling. So I'm kind of like layering two productive things at the same time, which is nice. And in this case, I was like, okay, I could watch videos or I could listen to things on that way. So I also told it my learning preference style. So I've got the timeline, 8 weeks. I've got the time constraints, 45 minutes, roughly like 5 to 6 days a week. And then also, because I'm someone who gets nervous about the doing of the doings, I'm good at the planning of the plannings, but the doing of the doings, I sometimes struggle. So I said every single week I need to have something that I actually have to implement before I can move on to the next week because it's going to build upon itself. So in one of the weeks, it was just like, you need to sign up for GitHub. And I was like, okay, what is this thing? Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. But it's great. I'm going to become so much familiar with these areas that I have kind of shied away from in the past and not fully understood, but was aware of their existence and like where they fit, but just never like dove in. So it's good. It's going to push me to get out of my comfort zone because I very much placed myself as a non-techie person. And I think I can bridge that gap. I don't need to be that anymore. Anyone can be a technical person. You just have to have the enthusiasm and drive and commitment. So I'm going to do it. I just don't know how long it's going to take. So doing an activity like that was actually really helpful because I was like, I know who I want to be. I know where I want to go. And I know, I mean, roughly where I am now, but I don't know where my gray areas are. So I asked a chatbot, interview me, find out my gray areas, my skill gaps, the things I'm less confident and comfortable with, and then how to implement them in what order. And so it was able to break that down step by step. One of the other things that I added in, which anyone can do, it doesn't matter on like your particular learning preference. I just said for every topic that you're going to break down in like 5 to 6 learning objectives per week, give me long tail keyword options for that topic so that I can look it up on Google and YouTube to find videos. Cool. And one of the other things that you can do, and this is just going to be one example of many things from like what I'll tell you in the next episode, which is just going to be like a mind dump of things that you can use AI for, uh, is that if your learning style is actually just listening, you don't want to watch, like you're doing other things, maybe you're going on a walk and you can't watch, or you're happy to read things. Yes, you can do AI. You can use AI to do research for you to find the information and pull it together. You can put all of that into a notebook, not this kind of notebook, but Google Notebook LM, which is one of my favorite tools. Put all your resources in there. On the free version, you can put in 50 sources. On the paid version, you can put in 300. And then you can generate a customized podcast overview, a long one, a short one, a debate, a critique, whatever you like in 80 different languages. So if your learning objective is learning a different language, that might also be helpful. And then you can download that audio version or just listen to it while it's on your computer. So, depending on the task, I know I will gather the information from likely one of two ways. I will either listen to it by a compiled podcast from resources in a notebook, which then I have as like I have it to look back on, or I will use the long tail keywords that it's provided to find them on YouTube so that I can watch them while I'm cycling in the morning. So again, I've tried to customize it to realistically what I can fit into my schedule, you know? So that's a way that I'm going to get closer to who I want to be. And also when I think about it from a more long-term perspective, because again, I'm very much a planner, I know that for my future business, when it comes to intellectual property, there's so many things with tech that it's like such a gray area in a lot of different ways. I was like, I want to understand how this thing is built. I want to have control over it. I want to have creative control over it. I want to have the IP, the proprietary software information. Like, I want to know. I want to know how it's built. I want to be able to build it myself. Of course, there's going to be things that may still require other teams, but, and I'm going to talk about this more at some point. I did a very cool thing recently, which was getting involved with an AI hackathon. I talked to some way more techie people, and they gave me the confidence and also like the know-how to actually build some of what I'm trying to build completely on my own. And they basically just broke down the process. And I was like, okay, you're making me nervous. So I've heard other people say strictly not to do that, but it's worth giving it a go, right? Like I say, be curious, try it out, see if it works for you, and go from there. So, anything else? Yes, we've done customized curriculum for yourself. So, whatever your goal is, put your goal in, see if you can actually work back, figure out what all your gaps are, knowledge gaps, as well as skill gaps or confidence gaps, and then try to close those gaps. Strategize. Again, I always think of chatbots as your 24/7 strategic support partner. You can use it to solve lots and lots of problems, including internal ones. And next up, we're going to be talking about the AI advantage. Dun dun dun. What does it mean? AI. I will also talk about some of like the bad, the bad sides of AI. This podcast is not for people who hate AI. If you hate AI, it's probably not the podcast for you. There's plenty of people that hate AI on the internet. I hear from them all the time on social media. Lots and lots of hate comments on a regular basis. And I could do an entire podcast episode just about internal resilience, dealing with people understanding you or not liking you once you try to do something with your life and put yourself out there. It is just an inevitability. So if you need that episode, you let me know. But otherwise, we're just going to talk about the advantages of AI. There's downsides, there's pros, there's cons to everything in this world. It really depends on what you look at. And of course, if you're someone trying to start a business or growing your business or scaling your business, it's a massive thing to ignore. So, we'll talk about it in the next episode. Okay, I'll see you then.